Hey y'all, and welcome back to the homestead. So if you watched a couple of weeks ago, I made a video about recipes using pork chops. And so I wanted to kind of keep with that theme of, making recipes out of one protein. And one of mine and Tyler's favorite proteins to cook with is ground beef. I love it, he loves it. It's just so versatile. I mean, you can make hamburgers, you can make soups, stews, tacos, all kinds of things. So I thought it would be really fun this week to share 2 recipes with you using ground beef. For our first recipe, we are making a beef and bean smothered burrito. I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, I've had beef and bean burritos before, and so I think making them at home is gonna just make them even better because I can add in my own seasonings, my own favorite type of cheese. If you know, you know. And I know that I just recently, like last week, I made a Mexican style dish. But if I'm being honest with y'all, at least once a week here on the homestead, we are making some type of Mexican style food. I don't always film it for you, but it is one of my absolute favorites. So when I saw this recipe, I definitely wanted to share it with you. So first thing we need to do is brown up our ground beef. Just gonna kind of break this ground beef up here with my meat chopper. And then we also need to chop up a white onion and cook it in here with the ground beef. Our ground beef has gotten nice and brown. Our onions are really tender. So at this time, I'm going to add in a package of taco seasoning. Just go ahead and use whichever one is your favorite, or maybe a homemade version. I think that would be great. And then for the bean part, we're going to add in 1 can of refried beans. Ooh. I thought it was going to come out all in one, just like that. We got almost lucky on that one. And so then I'm just going to kind of give this a stir, try and break up these refried beans. And then just try and get it well incorporated with all this ground beef and onion. And just give it a few minutes to kind of let these beans get warmed up. So as you can see here, this mixture is pretty thick. And that is the way you want it. That means you are doing something right. So one of the next things I want to do before we actually start assembling our burritos is I'm just going to take some of our favorite queso and put some in there. That way it's nice and cheesy on the inside of the burrito as well as cheesy on the outside of the burrito. Now that we have everything well incorporated, let's move on over to the countertop to assemble our burritos. Now for the fun part, we get to assemble everything. I just have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I'm going to take 1 can of red enchilada sauce and pour it in the bottom of our baking dish. After we get that in the baking dish, I'm just going to take a large scoop of our beef and bean mixture. Maybe even a little bit more than that. I want these to be filled up. And I'm going to fold each end and then roll this side over, kind of pull and tuck it in, fold in those edges, and roll. And now I am using the large burrito size tortillas. And then we're going to place it seam side down in that enchilada sauce. So I'm just going to repeat that process. And I have 6 tortillas here. So hopefully we have enough filling and room in our pan for 6 burritos. Okay, I'm excited because we got all 6 of these to fit in our pan. So next, on top of your burritos, we're going to take another can of red enchilada sauce, and we're going to pour that all over the top. And we want to make sure every inch of these burritos are covered. So I'm just going to take like my little silicone brush here and just kind of brush some of this sauce over top of the burritos, just the parts that didn't get any when we poured it on top. These are going to be so good, I already know. They smell good. I love this red enchilada sauce. I think this is gonna be a winner. Okay, and then before we put this in the oven, we need to top it with cheese. Now, you can top it with your favorite cheese, or like if you have a Mexican style cheese, go ahead and do that. I'm just going to use our favorite white queso, the Panchos, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over top of the burritos. Perfect. All right, and that's it. Now, since I already have a liquid cheese on mine, I'm not going to cover it with foil, but if you have like a sprinkled cheese, go ahead and just cover it with foil, and then we're going to put this in a 375-degree oven for about 20 minutes or so. Y'all, this one is definitely a winner. It is so good, full of flavor. Of course, I had to top it with some fresh tomatoes from our garden and some cilantro. But I'm telling you, if you love Mexican food, you need to make this recipe. Okay, y'all, so let's get ready to make recipe number 2. This week, Tyler actually found this recipe. He found it on Facebook, and the funny part is that the blog that it came from, his name is The Food in My Beard. So very fitting and very funny. But we're gonna make one of his recipes, and it's a meatloaf lasagna. It's really good. Spoiler alert, we've actually already had this recipe before, but it is so good. It looks complicated, but I'm telling you, it is very, very easy to make. So I'm going to turn you around, and the first thing I need to do is get some water boiling for our lasagna noodles. While we wait for that water to boil, I'm going to go ahead and mix up my meatloaf. Now, I don't have a fancy meatloaf recipe. If you have one, I would love for you to share with me down in the comments. But I just use this McCormick meatloaf seasoning, a little bit of breadcrumbs, and some farm fresh eggs. We're ready to assemble. I'm so excited. All right, so we're gonna start by like cutting our meatloaf mixture into 4, because we're gonna do this 1/4 of your meat at a time. So here's mine. I'm gonna try to just use one hand because I need the other hand to like sprinkle cheese and sauce on and I don't want to get raw meat on everything. But you want to try and make it like the length of the noodles, but I am going to try and make mine pretty thin. The first time Tyler and I made this recipe, I didn't make the meat super thin and it took a long time to cook. So I'm just going to try and make it long this way and thin. So, but then again, if you want yours thicker, that's fine. Just leave it thick. Now, my ground beef is not very lean, so it is going to shrink up after when it's cooking. So, the original recipe, I'll show you, it said that when you put your noodles in, you want it to be the same width as your noodles. But, since my ground beef is going to shrink up anyways, I think if it has an edge, it will be fine. Make that just a little bit thinner. Okay, we'll try that. And then you're going to take 2 of your lasagna noodles and lay those down. So you see how mine has that little bit of an edge? I think that's going to be just fine. I'm going to start with, let's start with the cheese. I'm going to start with some ricotta cheese. And we want to make sure we got lots of cheese. When I made this the first time, I didn't put a ton of cheese. And we were both sad. So we're going to make sure we got lots of good cheese in it this time. That's one good thing about like when you try a new recipe. You can always tweak it the next time you make it to make it even better. Alright, so we got the ricotta. I'm going to add on some mozzarella. A little bit more. And then the original recipe doesn't say to do this, but it was just something we noticed we wanted to do the second time, is I'm just going to take some spaghetti sauce and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it in there on top of that cheese. Ooh, that's a lot, but I think it'll be okay. I'm going to use my spoon to just kind of spread that out a little bit. And we're also going to be putting sauce on the top. You know, like when you make a meatloaf, you make like a special glaze that'll go on top. We're going to do that, but just using that marinara sauce. Alright, and then we're going to come back with another 1/4 of our meat. I might have to use 2 hands and just kind of wipe my hands off each time, because this is going to kind of squish some of that sauce out. But we're just going to repeat this process over and over until we use all of our meatloaf mixture and our lasagna noodles. All right, so I got all of our layers done. This may not be the prettiest dish you're ever gonna make, but I promise you it is very delicious. I have the oven preheated to 375, and then we're gonna bake this for 30 minutes. Once that timer goes off, we're gonna take it out, put some more sauce on top, and then bake it for probably another 20 minutes. So if you love meatloaf and lasagna, I promise you, you will not be disappointed with this recipe. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me in the kitchen this week. I loved making these ground beef recipes with you. We love using ground beef here on the homestead. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you try these recipes or if you have any tweaks that you would make to these recipes to make them even better. And I will see y'all next weekend. Bye.